Horace Cooper on the line with us. He's an attorney and senior fellow with the National Center for Public Policy Research, the website nationalcenter.org. Horace, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom. Thank you for having me on today.
It's nice to have you with us. So the Fischer case is going back to the Supreme Court. Do I have that right?
It may be going back to the Supreme Court. We've requested an en banc hearing to overturn the initial ruling by the Fifth Circuit upholding UT's ability to incorporate race as among the factors that they use for some of their admissions processes.
Okay, so the original case was Abigail Noel Fischer versus University of Texas at Austin. Fischer was a white person who was alleging that there was discrimination in the university because race was considered when admitting people, and there was some preferential treatment being given to people who were not white. Do I have that right?
Yeah.
And the court said that's fine. It's okay to compensate for centuries of discrimination with a little bit of affirmative action. Is that right?
No, that's funny.
I mean, isn't that essentially what the court said? You can disagree with it, but isn't that essentially what they said?
No, they didn't. That's why I said it's funny. This is part of the reason why the University of Texas is having some of the challenges in some of the other schools. There's actually never been a Supreme Court holding that centuries of discrimination may be remedied with some type of affirmative admissions program. They have consistently argued all the way from Bakke that to do that would violate the Constitution. That is a power that Congress may have, and even some legislatures may be able to adopt policies that address this. But that is not something that government-funded agencies, including schools, have.
Right.
And so they have had to come up with some alternative arguments in order to justify. We think, upon review, what the Supreme Court initially told the Fifth Circuit was that they should examine and make sure that this is the most effective way to do it, that the other alternatives have been exhausted, and to make sure that this isn't just a subtle way to announce that we're remediating, quote, past injustices. That's actually what they were told not to do.
I'm fascinated by your position on this, Horace. You're African American, and I'm sure in your life experience, I mean, I know white guys who given half a chance, would aggressively and actively discriminate against blacks in hiring and in school admissions or anything else, and pretty much pass as normal people. I'm guessing you've had the experience in your life of being treated differently than a white person because you're black.
Oh, I'm sure I have. I know that I have. I challenge your idea that these people, quote, pass and pretend that they're like everyone else. You actually can't do that. If your view is that the race of other people is an important criteria for assessing your interactions with them, others can tell. There are ways that you act, talk, behave, respond that let that on. Now, the idea that that kind of person has ferreted out and figured out how to get to be the chief admissions counselor, set admissions policies at the major higher education institutions in the country, I think is just fatuous.
Well, but Horace, just 45 years ago, that wasn't just the norm, it was the legal norm in the United States.
Yeah, guess what? It wasn't actually school counselors that were setting this policy. It was the state legislature that was setting this policy.
No, I understand that, but you also had school counselors who were very, very happy to go along with it.
No, you had a bunch of people that didn't care, that weren't making any steps one way or the other. That's no doubt about it. They weren't willing to put their lives on the line. That is not to say that today, when you talk about the top 25 public schools in America or the top 25 private colleges in America, that's where the racists have managed to hide out without anyone knowing. That's just not true.
Well, the racists are hiding out all over the place. My point is, I'm trying to understand what you have against affirmative action when people who have been, for generations, have suffered from racism and discrimination. We know poverty, for example, children who grew up in poverty have a smaller vocabulary at the age of 5 because they've been exposed to fewer words. than somebody who grew up in the middle class, regardless of race.
Okay,
and
you got to start all the way back in the 1950s and go forward, and you can search and you'll see that there just is no support for the argument that government institutions have the right, have the legal authority to say we're remedying past injustices on the grounds of race. Now, when a lot of folks who support affirmative action programs talk to one another, they say exactly what you say. But when they come to court, they know they're not allowed to say that because that's a clear loser, and so they come up with some other arguments. We believe that the arguments that Texas attempted to put forward at the Fifth Circuit don't make much sense, unless, of course, it's the very thing that you just said, and if it is, then that isn't legally allowed. Whether you want it to be or not isn't the same as what is the law.
Well, in the decision, I have the decision here in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
I have Ginsburg's dissent, actually. She had said, I have said before and reiterate here that only an ostrich could regard the supposedly neutral alternatives as race unconscious. It is race consciousness, not blindness to race, that drives such plans. She's not talking about affirmative action. She says, I have several times explained why government actors, including state universities, need not to be blind to the lingering effects of overtly discriminatory past, the legacy of centuries of law-sanctioned inequality. And she said, those who candidly disclose their considerations of race are preferable to those who conceal it. This is her quoting a previous, her quoting herself in a previous dissent.
That's right. And her challenge has been she was never able to convince Sandra Day O'Connor, another woman, nor has she been able to convince Mr. Kennedy, sort of a swing vote, and not able to convince a working 5-member majority. All the way from Bakke, we've never gotten a court to agree that remedying past injustice is a legitimate use of the authority that agencies have. They're always allowed and encouraged to talk about the benefits of diversity, to talk about enhancing the educational experience. That is something.
Do you think, Horace,
have the right
both as a lawyer, a conservative scholar, and as an African American, do you think that there should be any remedy for 4 centuries for 2 centuries of slavery and 2 centuries of or 3 centuries of slavery and a century of legal discrimination?
No. You distort
Apartheid?
You distort our entire legal system if you say that we can take the overwhelming evidence of the unfairness and injustice and translate that to a particular judicial actor and empower him or her to remedy it. Who will they?
Then how about reparations?
What's that?
Then how about reparations?
Some people would argue that the entire Johnson Welfare Society is, in fact, that.
Well, and that paved the way for a black middle class of substantial size.
Actually, Thomas Sowell has done a lot of research on this, and what happened was from the 1940s to the early 1960s, there was a huge boom in the middle class. This is pre the Great Society, and then during the Johnson era, the Nixon era, and heading into the Carter era, there was a move to government in which it became the largest employer of black middle classes and has distorted black.
But that was because government was not allowed to legally discriminate, whereas private businesses were still legally discriminating, Horace.
Are we going to a break?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I wasn't trying to get the last word there. In any case. Horace Cooper, we will live to debate again.
All right. Enjoy coming on. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for dropping by. Horace, you can read his writings over at nationalcenter.org.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So what do we do about this situation? I mean, I think reparations is a good resolution. Fine.